turn the sights. Let's get a photograph. Welcome. Thanks. We'll have you stand right here, Vincent. All right, guys, on count of 3, the camera's right here. They're gonna go crazy. If you can just, Vincent, you'll just turn around right here, look behind you right here. This camera right here. Ready? Perfect. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Hi, everyone. So, where do we start? Yeah, thanks. You're welcome.
Hi, man. How are you, sir?
I'm good.
It's an honor to see you here. Welcome to Utah. I'm sure you've been here many times, but
Not the best
I'm
pod,
here.
but
I actually have family that lives here.
I think we all have family in Utah, sooner or later. So I am super excited you're here, and you actually kind of started off your career at the same time I was starting to love film. I was like 14 in 1987. And you were a young buck in Full Metal Jacket.
I think I was 23 or 24.
And I know everybody always talks about Stanley Kubrick, but my favorite is the Ermey. Sorry. How was he offset? Because on set, I would have cried all day, every day, because he was streaming constantly. But I know he was actually a very nice man. But how was he on the set?
Oh, he was great. He's exactly the way you think he was. I mean, I thought he was a pretty amazing guy. The guy was a real drill instructor. And he also, not only that, but he did 3 tours in Vietnam. He went back twice. So that's, he's something else. And
military experience.
yes, he was, the best thing I remember actually about Lee was that Stanley Kubrick, who directed the movie, would always be right by set with a typewriter in case we came up with stuff that wasn't scripted, and if he liked what we came up with, he typed it out, and then it became part of the script, and then you'd have to repeat it. But Lee was constantly improvising, so he was constantly digging himself a grave, because he would come up with so much stuff, and he wasn't like a incredibly trained actor, though he was a very good actor when the camera was rolling, but he didn't have a lot of training. He was more of a military guy. But he would accumulate so much dialogue for himself, and it would just make it harder and harder for him all day long.
Memorizing lines is not easy for a lot of people who are even professionals who do
I'm
it
not
their whole
dummy.
lives and aren't trained.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give one more question and
Yeah.
then we'll unleash heck, because it's Utah.
Okay.
So I've said this to a lot of people in public, and I will say this to my dying day. One of the greatest physical acting moments I've ever witnessed is you as Edgar in Men in Black. It's the balance of, it is super funny, but it's also unbelievably believable, if I can say that. Because I've actually felt like you were a bug trying on a human suit.
Yeah.
My only worry was, did you hurt yourself doing that? Because that looked like you might have double jointed yourself in the inappropriate way.
No, I didn't hurt myself, but I can tell you a really good story about that if you want to hear.
That's exactly why I asked.
So, a friend of mine who used to run Danny DeVito's company a long time ago, her name was Stacy Scher. She was a producer, and I happened to do, Keanu Reeves and I did a movie called Feeling Minnesota, where we played brothers. And Stacy produced that. And so we became friends, and I was in LA doing another film at the time. I'm a New Yorker, I live in New York. But back in the day, they used to actually make films in Los Angeles, and so you'd stay for like 3 or 4 films in a row, and each studio would end up paying your rent on your house. And you'd just stay in this house for like a year straight.
Cha-ching.
Yeah. And so Stacy called me one day and she said, there's this director, Barry Sonnenfeld. And I knew who he was because I had just gone to the screening of Get Shorty, which is a great film if you've never seen it. And I said, yeah, of course. And she goes, well, he wants me to give you a script, but there's one condition. You have to promise that you'll never talk about acting or direction or anything with him. And because I had worked with Stanley Kubrick, he was a lot like that himself. It's always a kind of worry because you have nobody to go to. But, you know, I was used to it, so I said, okay, I'll promise him I won't talk to him about acting. And so she delivered the script to me. She had the script delivered to me. And so I open it up and I start reading it, and it's this guy, this creature that comes down and takes over this guy's body, and there's practically no dialogue and no description of the character. Nothing that you see in the movie was like in the script. It was all in Barry's mind. And so I kind of like, and I can't talk to the director. Like I had, and then I was there with my friend Steve Marshall, and we were hanging. He was actually living with me at the time. And he said, "Well, it's Barry Sonnenfeld," and we had known about his cinematography and everything he had done with previous people like me and Coen Brothers. And he goes, "You got to do it," and I'm like, "Oh man, what am I getting myself into?" I said, "Okay." So I said, "Okay," and then I had to figure it out. And so I remember smoking a joint with my friend Steve back in the day. Yeah. And we were watching bug documentaries. And I remember sitting on this couch, which was a stoner couch, I have to admit. Back then, that's what we did. And if those days were only still around, it would be so much more fun. But those days are gone. So we would watch, and I remember we were watching documentary after documentary after documentary, and the last thing I remember is that there was a slow zoom in on a beetle walking across a wooden porch. And it kind of pushed in and then panned with the beetle in this kind of slow, and I just got up and I turned it off and I just said, "Fuck it, I can't do this, I can't do this. It's ridiculous." I wasn't learning anything, it didn't help at all. And so I went for a walk that same day, and I was walking on Santa Monica Boulevard, and I passed by a store that sold prosthetics and medical equipment for limbs and things like that. And I saw these braces, these knee braces. And I went in and I asked the guy, can I try one on? And he's like, absolutely. He was this old dude, he was probably about 60 years, 70 years old. And he said, yeah, come on. And I explained what it was for, and he got so excited. It was just him and I. And so we tried these things on, and he put them on my knees. And I said, "Is there any way we can lock them off?" And he said, "Oh, yeah." So he went to his back room and he got some duct tape, and he had paint stirrers, wooden paint, right? And he brought a bunch of those out, and I bent my knees like that, and we locked them off with the paint stirrers and the tape. We locked my ankles off and my knees, and then I just tried to walk, and I thought, "Oh, this is getting somewhere now. Like there's a creature stuck in this guy's body. It must be very difficult for him to move, and he must be very frustrated about it." And that's how it led to that character, the movement, the way I came up with the movements of the character and stuff. And then I knew I had to find a voice, and we were watching Chinatown. I used to have a great big screen with laser. I still have like 2,000 laser discs.
The laser discs are like compact. Wait a minute.
They're the size of an album.
Well, we gotta tell them what albums are. These are kids now.
Yeah.
So albums are these plastic vinyl things that you would flip it out. You took the stick, that was sharp thing would run around.
Yeah. It was this big silver disc, like a giant CD, if you even know what a CD is. But so we were watching Chinatown, and there was this great director who was an actor in this film called John Huston, and I took his voice and started to play with what little dialogue there was in the script, and there was this one particular line, pond scum, and I did it like John Huston, pond scum, like that, because that's how John usually talks. He accentuated everything he said. And his inflection was always the same, like that. And so that seemed to work to me. The only thing was that it was too slow, a cadence for comedy. Because comedy has to be a bit faster, and you have to be able to control the beats in comedy. You can't screw up the timing of anybody else. So to do a languid thing, it have to be written that way, and this wasn't. So I used George C. Scott's performance in Dr. Strangelove, where he talked like this very fast, like that. So I combined the two voices, and that's how I came up with the voice for the character.
Can't do it Sunday.